The sci-fi genre is filled with many recognizable tropes, like alien invasions, science experiments gone wrong, and of course, time travel. And within each of these tropes you have your own cliches, like alien invasions have their first contact and the take me to your leader moments. Science experiments gone wrong usually either end up with you getting superpowers or becoming a giant monster. And time travel has its paradoxes and space-time continuums and the such. And Doctor Who is no stranger to these, as it usually uses all of these science fiction tropes in its own storytelling, like alien invasions, robots, clonings, paradoxes, and, as we're about to see, shrinking. So let's put a microscope on the Doctor's minuscule adventures as we take a look at Planet of Giants. Planet of Giants is a pretty unique story in the Doctor Who catalogue, as it's not only the first time the Doctor and co have returned back to present-day Earth, but it's also the first three-part story. But it wasn't always supposed to be that way. It was originally supposed to be a four-parter, but was later heavily edited down to just three, leaving quite a few scenes of tiny shenanigans on the cutting room floor. But what we're left with is an extra short story about our extra short crew. We open with the TARDIS crew preparing to land when something goes awry and the doors are opened by mistake. Once they've landed properly, they go outside to find that they're in some sort of canyon and split up. After encountering giant insects, they realize that they've landed back on Earth, and the canyon they're in is actually a backyard garden. At regular size, we see the owner of the house, a businessman named Forrester, who is visited by Pharaoh, a scientist who works with him on a new pesticide called DN6. He comes to tell Forrester that DN6 is far too deadly and he won't work for him anymore. Forrester, who is determined to make money off of DN6 no matter what, kills Pharaoh right then and there. The crew goes over to his body when...
Grandfather!
Now, there's a lot to appreciate in this story. Like the set design alone is impressive, and I know what you're thinking. They may not look the best, but you have to remember, this is on a BBC budget, and a BBC budget back in the 60s, so I feel like they did well with what they had. And all the little prop insects, like the ant and the giant worm, help to paint a picture of this giant world the TARDIS crew has found themselves in. They even have this giant prop fly later on, which even actually moves, which I found quite impressive. I was thinking that for a while they were going to use the DN6 pesticide to explain why all the bugs were dead and didn't have to make them move, but I guess I was wrong. Speaking of the pesticide, the villains are quite interesting. Instead of the usual evil aliens or power-mad dictators, we have instead a businessman. We see here in Forrester a very different and specific brand of evil, a heartless bastard who only cares about making money and his own profit, regardless of who was hurt in the process. We find out later that DN6 is not only harmful to bugs and insects, but also to all creatures, even humans. Forrester knows this, and yet still doesn't care. It's definitely different from what we're used to on the show, and in its own way, it's more evil than most villains, and Forrester is only the first of many, many evil businessmen and corporations that would serve as villains in Doctor Who. And with the help of a giant match and an exploding can of DN6, the gang manages to stop Forrester's plan and DN6 being released to the public. They make it back to the TARDIS and return to normal size. This story is not the greatest story in Who history, nor is it trying to be. It's simply a small little story about our small little crew going on a small little adventure. It's a self-contained story that takes place solely in a garden and shed, with a small-scale threat and a ruthless villain. They have to contend with what usually is harmless, now threatening their lives. It's your typical shrinking story, and it fits well within this era of Doctor Who. But still, it's not all that special, so I can only give it 7 giant worms out of 10. And with that, another story done and dusted. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, it helps me out greatly. And join me next time on Doctor Who Digest as we take a look at the end of the world. See you then.